So it is early March, and we're starting to see some of our first significant rainfall here in central Ohio. And this is a time of year when the Franklin Soil and Water Conservation District office receives a lot of calls about drainage issues. So, flooding, standing water in folks' backs or front yards, those types of things. And one of the first things we do when we get these kinds of calls is a desktop review. So, we use different software to look at different features of the area and try to figure out what is causing these drainage problems. And there are a couple of these tools you can use yourself at home, and they can be really important if you're dealing with these issues or if you're thinking of buying a new property to look at the drainage landscape and figure out what's going on. To see if an area is at risk of flooding, we use an online tool called the FEMA Flood Map Service Center. It's pretty easy to use. You can enter a specific address or somewhere more general. I'm just going to search for Columbus. And you hit the search button, and it will pull up a map that is quite easy to use. You can scroll in and out. You can click and drag your way around. We're going to go over to Alum Creek over here, which has a bit of a wide floodplain to show what this map can tell you about different areas of floods. So here where we're seeing the red and blue striped area is the regulatory floodway. So this is going to be the area immediately adjacent to a river or stream, and it is going to be the most likely to flood when we see a large rain event. So these areas are going to flood fairly frequently, and we expect that to happen. Whereas when we get into the blue area, there's a slightly less risk of flooding, and the orange area is only a 0.2% chance annually, or up to 1% annual chance. So we call this a 1 in 100-year flood event if that water is reaching all the way up into these orange areas. One caveat of that is that this is based on historical data, and we are seeing storms increase in both frequency and intensity. So, this historical data is no longer completely accurate, where this used to be a 1 in 100-year flood area that might look more like 1 in 50 years or 1 in 75 years, where our 1 in 100 area may extend slightly beyond this orange area. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this, that it is not the end all be all where the water is going to stop within the bounds of the map. It may expand a little outside of that when we get a really high intensity storm. The other cause of drainage issues on a property, and a much more common cause, is ponding. So, ponding is not associated with a stream or river most of the time. Usually, it has more to do with the shape of the land. So, it's usually a basin shaped area, and the soil in that area is almost always prone to holding on to water. So, we call that a hydric soil. And just like the FEMA Flood Map Service Center, we have a tool that can help us identify the types of soils on a property.
And that tool is the Web Soil Survey. So, this is produced by the United States Department of Agriculture Natural Resources Conservation Service. You can find it at websoilsurvey.nrcs.usda.gov. And the first thing we're going to do when we get here is click this green button right here to start up the Web Soil Survey. Now, this is a little more difficult to use than the FEMA Flood Map Service Center, but it's still not too bad. So instead of scrolling with our mouse and being able to drag around, we do have to use this button bar up here. So if we have the plus magnifying glass clicked, it will zoom us in, the minus will zoom us out, and then we can click this little hand here to be able to drag the map around. Just like the FEMA map, we can enter an address, and it can be a city, it can be a street, it can be an exact address. So type your address into here and go ahead and hit the view button, and it'll zoom us right in to where that address is. Next, we are going to head back up to our button bar and click on this AOI with a square above it. AOI stands for Area of Interest. So once we click this button, we can drag our reticule to set our area that we are interested in, our AOI. It's going to make this dash blue bounding box, and if that is where we would like it, we can head over here into the Soil Map tab, and it's going to generate a map of the soils in this area. Now, this is only valid down to a certain scale, so take it with a little bit of a grain of salt where these actual dividing lines between soil types are. But for the most part, this is pretty good. So say I get a call from someone on Squad Court here who is having issues with ponding in their backyard. I'm going to look, and I can't see what the soil type is right now, so I'm going to zoom in one more time, and I see that it's KO. So I go over here to my legend, scroll down a bit, and find KO, and that is Kokomo Silty Clay Loam. So Kokomo is the name of this soil type. I can click on it, and it's going to generate a wall of information all about this soil type. Everything from the amount of average rainfall it gets each year to frost-free period. But the information I'm looking at when I'm concerned about flooding and ponding specifically, is down here in the properties and qualities. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the drainage class, and it's saying this is very poorly drained, which is not a good sign. Our depth to water table is 0 to 6 inches. That is very close to the surface. A lot of times our water table is a couple feet underground, but this is very close to the surface. And frequency of ponding is also a quality here, and that is frequent for this soil type. So I have a feeling this is going to be a type of soil that is holding on to water. Just to verify, down here under interpretive groups, we have hydric soil rating, which is yes. Hydric soil literally means it's holding on to water, holding on to that hydration. This is a hydric soil. It is going to have ponding issues unless there's some kind of drain underneath it. Now I can see right next door to my Kokomo soil is CRA. If I want to look at what that soil is, that's Crosby. And we can open up our Crosby, see a different type of soil. We can see here the depth to water table is 6 to 24 inches, a little more standard there. Frequency of ponding on this soil is none. So right next door to the Kokomo soil, we have a soil that is not experiencing ponding as much. My hydric soil rating here is no, so this is not a hydric soil, even though it's right next door to my Kokomo soil, which is more of a wetland. We can kind of see some clues sometimes on this aerial map as well. So if I'm looking over here at a farm field, or if there's a big lawn somewhere, you can kind of see where this Kokomo soil area is outlined is a little greener. And that's because there's more water there. So whatever weeds or crops are here are going to grow a little faster than in our Crosby soil that's dry. Thanks for joining us today for this very high-level overview of the FEMA Flood Service Center map and the Web Soil Survey. There is a lot of nuance to using these tools that I didn't get to cover in the 10-minute video, so if there's something you're having trouble using on them or understanding, I highly recommend reaching out to your county's Soil and Water Conservation District. The experts there can help you use those tools, interpret those tools, and gather some more information from other tools that are available as well.